If we just want to do some, simple TA here, if we want to make some TA here, I would probably call this a quintessential bear flag. Look, I don't even have to do anything. This is the bottom. Our channel of descension is the flag, and this is so, if you want to find the, according to legacy technical astrology, if you want to find the probabilities of this bear flag, you take the pull, you slide it all to the breakout point, and then we're all at, this is 84.4, so we'll put it in. Listen, here's the truth. If we're sunsetting this bull run, 84.4 will hit. It's just downward from here. We still have this 84.4 just for my future videos. 84.4. We don't want it to hit, but without any bullish prowess entering this market, it'll probably just drift down.
Sure enough, just seconds ago, Lord love a duck if she wasn't just at 84.4. Look at that. Bottomed out through a wick down here. We had to lower our bull market rejection fib, right? We'll get to that in a second. You can see where the peepers are right up there. What did we get down to last night? 80, almost broke 80. Craziness. Yeah, and then we came back up here to 84.5-ish. Slightly off, but these doodles, it's almost spooky, really, when you think about it, but not really. Like if we're in a downward pattern, it's easy to call where patterns will go, right? Now, if we have a reversal, it's a little bit tougher. But if we're going to go down this narrative of the bull market rejection zone, which I've been kind of augmenting as we hit new lows, let's go over on the daily. A little easier to see here. We can pulling this fib from the top down to our new low, which is there, and we see our 38.2% fib. The bull market rejection zone is under 100K now, which would make sense because if we go down this narrative, right? Let's say we relief rally up to here, then we get rejected. It would make sense to get rejected before going over 100K. So now we're going to do some parallel systems here. If this happens, we will likely not see 100K for probably a year, right? Which gotta make sense, right? Now I have some theories on some simple theories. Like I've been watching every expert in the field talk about what's going on in this market, right? I have a pretty simple one that kind of makes sense. I haven't really thought it through, so it might be you might be freeballing here a thought experiment. But you can see how now that it's under 100K, we would have this relief rally. Everyone would be, somewhat confident. Then we hit that 100,000 psychological resistance. And then, of course, that is now, it's 98 to be precise. So to never close against 98. And if we get rejected from there, I would expect to, in a normally functioning market. But I don't believe this is a normal functioning market. So here's my thought experiment. We can just go and check this out at the ding dong too. You can see there, 98, little green candle up here. A bit of a relief. People would kind of think we're back, and then dump city. Because that would be, let's take this out. Yeah, we wouldn't even get back into the epic bull flag. This was the bull flag to retire everyone, right? Everyone would have been retired if this bull flag played out to like 150. Not really, but you know what I mean. It would have been better times, but maybe not even, 145, 150. Now, this is why I don't think we saw these big numbers. And it's kind of simple, maybe. Like right now I'm reading the one sheet of my thought, and I haven't really dove into what's going on behind this one sheet. So let's break down this one sheet in my mind. Allow us to break it down in real time. So with the market structure being contaminated with ETF buying. So what we saw was retail being able to avoid a certain learning process of Bitcoin. Now, the learning process of Bitcoin arguably is how to buy Bitcoin and store it, and take it off an exchange. So we've all done it. Everyone on this stream has done this. So we're above that grade. We know that how to buy on exchange, how to get it off and put it into cold storage. We all know that. That is a fundamental lesson to learn in Bitcoin. And if you don't know that, you have allocation to it, you have exposure, but you're not really, an orange-pilled Bitcoiner. That's when you get your badge. So that actually has some unintended consequences because you are subverting the exchanges, the spot, the market forces, if it will. So when you're buying an ETF, and let's just say that it's all up and up, all on the up and up, right? Let's just suspend disbelief and say that it's all on the up and up. So the retail come in, and instead of doing our journey where we get on an exchange, what do I do? How do I buy it? And what do I do now? Right? That's part of the learning process. They just go to an ETF, IBIT, whatever, and they buy it. So that's step one. It doesn't have a market reaction. So 1 million people could come in and buy, $100 or whatever. It wouldn't have an immediate spot reaction because it's going through a third party. Now, on the up and up, this third party then has to buy the Bitcoin for their clients. However, they're still subverting the market powers because they're buying OTC. Right? They're not like, there's not some guy in the BlackRock Bitcoin desk going like, we got 1 million people buying here. Binance, I got to buy 1 million. No, they're working it out. They're reconciling it at their own leisure. We saw this in 2024 and 2025. Massive inflows, right? But no impact on the price. And now some say, well, they were just exchanging money through ETFs or Grayscale. Yeah, and that's my point. So they're subverting the market dynamics. So you have all these people buying, putting pressure on the bid, but the bid isn't feeling the pressure because it's all backwards. It's all backdoor deals, right? Grayscale dumping into ETFs, dumping into MicroStrategy. So it's just essentially a big old wash trade going on right in front of our eyes. So the market never really felt the pressure as it should, right? So now we have what we'd call retail, because make no mistake, these ETFs aren't like a private institution buying for their own private bags. They're representing clients, which is retail, and purchasing their Bitcoin and custodian, like being the custodian for the, you know what I mean? But it's not having an impact on the exchanges, which then impacts the price. So he basically had 2 years of wash trading, never putting the pressure on the bid. And then what we have now is we have people, or whales, or whatever you want to call them, these market forces. If we do, we're going to they're splashing the exchange, right? Putting the pressure on the sell. Jimmy Coco. Let me see here. Let me read this right before I get into it. To the tune of Piano Man, sing us TA pianomattyb with lines that trail off to the right, because the price she is fading and shift is degrading. Gotta know if my nest egg's all right. Sing us TA pianomattyb, lines that trail off to the right, because the price she's fading and shift is degrading. Gotta know if my nest egg's all right. Very nice. It worked out perfectly. Nice. That's a good one. See, we're working together here, Jimmy Coco. Thank you for the super chat. I'll have to let's see if I can work that in on the piano bar. So my loose theory, it's very simple. Very simple. With the OTC desk and institutions wash trading through each other, we never felt the pressure of the bid. And that's why it's like, everyone's like, what the hell's going on here? What do you mean we've had billions and billions and billions of buy pressure, but no upside, right? kind of simple way to put it is that they were just wash trading the OTC desk, right? And I've been saying this for a long time. The joke's on them because they're going to be holding this bag without retail coming in and putting pressure on the bid. So without pressure on the exchanges, it's just a bunch of wash trading OTC desks going back and forth. And that's a simple way to explain why we didn't see the parabolic rise of Bitcoin. Because think about this. I don't know how many billions of dollars went into the ETFs, right? But it was in the billions. It was an insane amount of money coming in. Can you imagine what, let's just, $50 billion or something like that. I mean, we could go and count it up right now with the inflows, but it'd take too long. We don't got the time. But we know it's a big number. Imagine if that was retail doing what we did, going finding Gemini or Bull Bitcoin or Binance or Kraken or whatever. Like, let's leave Bull Bitcoin out of it. That's non-custodial. Let's go exchanges that people like Binance or something. Going through the murky waters of buying that $50 billion, we would have seen these prices that everyone knows it should have went to under normal market conditions. If the pressure was put on the bid with all these billions of dollars coming in, the price had to go up. But with circumventing the exchanges through OTC desks, there's no bid pressure. It's just wash trading. And it's the humble opinion of this piano, that's why we didn't see price action go up the way it should. It was almost the unintended consequences of the OTC desk. Now, will that ever change? I don't know. Maybe regulation. I'm not, like, if anyone has any more experience in the TardFi stock market, is there OTC desks there, or is it just, the market maker and the bid and the sell? I don't know. So I don't really care about buying stocks, but I kind of know in the gold markets, you don't see massive liquidations to like 40% in 3 weeks, because there are certain rules they have to follow. Maybe once those rules are followed we talked about this in last week. My dark theory, how they're sunsetting these exchanges, right? So there is this thing. Let's see if I got it here. We'll go over it. Oh, why did you? Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. So this says, this is one of the most extreme structurally anomalous readings Bitcoin has ever printed. It reinforces exactly what we've been saying about force flow plus microstructure break. Let's dissect the property. The chart is legit and it confirms the distortion. The 3 core claims are lowest one-day MACD reading ever. This checks out. Okay. Get an all-new all-time low MACD on the daily despite only 33% drawdown. That is a little bit of a market distortion, right? 33%. You wouldn't necessarily see the lowest moving average convergent divergence in history. It means the velocity and smoothness of the selling is far more extreme than the magnitude of the drawdown. So now, if you keep in the back of your mind the concept of them sunsetting these exchanges, right? This never happens in organic markets. This is exactly what forced institutional, algorithmic, or risk-mandated selling looks like. Consistent pressure, no reflexive bounces, no momentum resets, no buyer-led intervention. Yeah. So we haven't seen any relief rallies whatsoever, basically since October 10th or whenever that big liquidation event was. It's just been downtown Julie Brown for almost a month now. That's not really normal. Even 2021 crash, we were still getting relief rallies. People are still optimistic because the market can push the price back up if there's the bid, right? We haven't seen that. Healthy markets don't do this. Broken execution does. RSI 21 in 1 day, only 4 times in 5 years. It's crazy. Lowest where the RSI on the daily chart is, it's only been there 4 times in 5 years. So we're not talking about like cascading liquidations like we saw in 2021. We're like at 35% from the all-time high. And the RSI doesn't represent sentiment, remember? Like, sentiment is what the emotions of the humans kind of throw into the pool. This is just the data, Relative strength index. It's not a sentiment, right? 4 times in 5 years. That's very weird. When you hit RSI 21 during a broad risk-off collapse, 2020-21, cascading liquidations, FTX 22, macro shocks, you expect massive multi-day or multi-week reversals afterwards. Now, maybe it's coming, right? We just haven't seen it yet. But it's right. You do get relief rallies, not just 30 days of blood bathing. Yet today, the RSI is printing in a vacuum with no macro shock, no credit event, no leverage blowout, no ETF redemptions of size. This is compression, not trend destruction. Now, I would argue there has been some ETF redemptions of size. It's pretty easy to go and check that. If we go over here, there we go. That's 1 billion of redemptions coming in. So there are redemptions coming through. But I think, again, that's more the sentiment of the retail seller. So when people are redemptions on ETF, this isn't like, I see this a lot. People will conflate BlackRock with a private buyer, right? BlackRock isn't selling their bag. BlackRock is selling on the beknownst, I don't know if that's a word, of their client. Clients, all these boomers are probably like, get me out of Bitcoin. I can't pull the G's, right? Let's get me out of here. And so they're selling on behalf of their retail, not them, right? They're not this massive private entity that is buying their bags, like 700,000 Bitcoin for their private entity. That would be scary. That'd be more like MicroStrategy. Now, I have a whole theory on MicroStrategy, but it gets dark fast. But maybe we'll get into that later. But so there has been some ETF redemptions. There sure has. Where are we here? Yes. Only down 33% from all-time high despite these extreme readings. This is the most important part. In every prior moment where MACD/RSI were this extreme, price was down 50 to 70%. Funding was deeply negative. Positioning was wiped clean. Derivative markets were collapsing. But now, prices down just 33%. ETFs, except for one day, maybe that day I just showed, still show net positive January. Okay, so year over year, the ETFs are still positive. So you would expect, like with this calamity, a complete reversal of the ETF inflows, and we still might see that. The day is young. Permanent holder accumulation is at a historical peak. Yeah, so you have these insane nuts like us. It's like nothing's pushing us, out of the market. It's just, the retail noob that came in can't pull the G's, and they're out. But generally, the majority of the longer term holder, not the whales. Like just, you got half a Bitcoin, maybe you got 4 Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin. You just have exposure that you're going to keep forever. That is at a historical peak. Solana ETFs printing green every day. That's an interesting one too. Solana has been, nothing but inflows in the ETFs. Price go down. So that would go back to my theory that they're circumventing the workings of the market. They're not putting a pressure on the bid. They're taking in the money and, maybe going to Wintermute or Binance and just OTCing. So we're not seeing the pressure on the bid and the price goes down. This is what's killed most people in this bull run. Is this the constant pressure up and the constant price down, or even, right? That is the tell. That is not a natural market. This is not a real seller. This is one or more forced entities closing risk in a broken market. Now that could be the case. We may have seen some companies, some DATs, some treasury companies maybe blow up from October 10th, and now they're unwinding, what they thought was the future of their company. There might be unwinding behind the scenes, not trying to make a panic for their investors, because then it all just, breaks down. The contagion is insane at that point. So maybe they are on this structured sell, market open, sell this much, right? But now you have to ask, why don't you get yourself a better deal? Well, if you're selling massive amounts of Bitcoin, why don't you sell OTC just like you bought it? You see, sucker. Look at the pattern. MACD at all-time low, RSI at capitulation level, price still structurally in an uptrend. Higher highs plus higher lows still intact. This is the definition of microstructure catastrophe and macro strength. If macro cycle structure were breaking, you would not get 186,000 Bitcoin absorbed by permanent holders in 6 weeks. Yeah, so there are, but then again, that's just the wash trading going on. You know, big sellers selling to big buyers. And then you get the odd whale, like yesterday, wasn't there a guy selling $1 billion right on spot? That doesn't make sense too. So then again, I've always said these whales aren't smart. They're just lucky, right? You know, they could probably look at all the slippage when it comes to by the time they're done selling the $1 billion, the price is so much different for them. They would have been better off selling OTC. But they're not that smart. They're just lucky whales, right? This is a bottleneck, not a cycle reversal. The seller hypothesis fits the chart perfectly. This chart is exactly what you'd see if a distressed fund, insert distressed fund here, a broken market maker, maybe some of these exchanges that are being sunsetted and we don't know about it. Because imagine that news. Imagine if we found out that for some reason they were told that in the coming year there will be some regulations that will make it impossible for these exchanges to exist in the States, right? Maybe they'll always be able to exist internationally, but it might be enough, seeing as though America is the biggest customer to these exchanges. If they know it's coming, you might see an unwinding of the exchange itself, them just dumping what they got out and getting out at the top, what they think is the top of the market, right? Maybe that is what's going on because they know what's coming. I don't know what's coming. But I'm just saying, if they are going to sunset, my long-term theory is that they're going to sunset these exchanges and you'll only be able to buy from ETFs, from a bank, from a government institution, not this indie freewheeling hippy-dippy exchange at your mercy late nights on the internet, right? So let's see. There's dumping on schedule irrespective of price. That is happening every morning. Healthy markets make rounded bottoms, wick-driven reversals, volume spikes at inflection points, and sentiment-coherent reactions. Now, the sentiment is pretty coherent. The sentiment is in line with the dumping. But dumping begets sentiment. And pumping begets sentiment. It could easily just switch. If we went back into the 90s, which isn't even, that great, sentiment would be bullish again for a brief moment. This is clinical mechanical execution, not macro. What this actually means, this is not a 2021 style trend break. 2021 break was funding stress, cascading along, spot selling, macro tightening, exhaustion of buyer demand. This is none of that. This is spot bid strong. Is it? Is spot bid strong? Long-term holders buying. Are they? ETF still accumulating? Well, not according to some of the data over there on our crypto, whatever that site is. Macro neutral to bullish. I'd say macro is bullish as it's ever been. It's not even neutral. That's the sentiments in the dumps, but macro is definitely bullish. There couldn't be more bullish fundamentals / dad rules coming at us every day. Right, so there is a divergence there. Seller highly constrained and systematic. Yeah, she's not made 2021. This is much closer to March 2020. A fourth actor swinging a wrecking ball through fragile books. This is where it kind of gets to the cope, right? Trying to look for. If you just keep it simple, you don't have to get into the minutia of these details. Everything has a reason. Essentially, there's probably one big reason, and my theory is the one big reason is that we've just been wash trading these massive retail buys, and that has taken its toll. So it hasn't put the pressure on the bid, and from there, everything else happens. And so you can find excuses for these little things that are happening, but really it's just the fact that we had billions and billions and billions and billions of buy pressure just put on the OTC desk. Can you imagine just fantasize today while you're driving to work? Imagine all these billions and billions of dollars on the exchange, spot driven. Remember the spot market where we all bought our Bitcoin from? Imagine if $50 billion hit that in 1 year. The price would go, I guess what they say, parabolic. Yeah, it would. No doot about it. A market maker or deep liquidity provider failed on October 10th, leaving a hole in the order book. Yeah, there could be someone that's, collapsing now in the back scene, and they don't in the back part of the office of the exchanges. They don't want the public to know, or else all their investors will dump. It'll just be rats fleeing the ship. So they're slowly unwinding, see if they can survive the pressure. The current selling pattern is that same entity or someone tied to them unwinding risk. If we go down that path, okay. This explains timing, rhythm, pressure, lack of reflexivity, bizarre lack of bid absorption, Bitcoin specific stress, why alts aren't breaking. Well, yeah, alts are breaking. I mean, alts are at 5-year low. Like basically if you've been holding on alts, and now what have I said this whole bull run? Just buy Bitcoin. Just buy Bitcoin. That's what I said this whole time. And I'm not happy that alts didn't go to the moon for people. I'm actually, that's horrible because alts go to the moon, Bitcoin price goes up, right? But if you've been holding on to these alts like for 4 or 5 years, you got to start asking yourself, okay, when do I, shit or get off the pot here, right? Am I going to hold it for another 4 years? At what point is there, no point? It's a misallocation of resources. If you've put a bunch of money in 2020, 2021, and you're still waiting for 2028, it just doesn't make sense, right? E-money, never buying alts again. Well, it's going to be tough because there's always going to be a big shiny toy that comes up and gets pumped by insiders, right? And then by the time we hear about it, we're late, and the insiders dump. This is why, like, as altruistic the ethos of Bitcoin, the majority of Bitcoin holders they believe in the future of Bitcoin and what it can do to realign humanity. But we don't see that playing out within the market. We see a bunch of, like even the concept of whales waiting for peaks to turn retail into liquidity. That's not an altruistic market. That's not how, the future of the monetary paradigm should evolve from. A few small whales waiting for retail to get orange pilled, get excited, and then dump on them. That's just not how a healthy market works. Now, maybe the disease is the cure. Like I always say, maybe this is something we have to get through. We have to get these lucky whales, not smart whales, lucky whales out, rotate their massive bags into probably ETFs, and then you won't have that ability for these lucky whales to dump on retail. I think that would be a good thing for humanity and investors. What did Wick say here? I bought XRP and had people for months asking if I was okay because it was stably on the bottom and not budging up. I think I'll buy Bitcoin this bear market. Well, it's just what happens, right? Like you touch the pan and burn your hand once, maybe twice, and you never touch it again, right? So I do believe as we move forward, the alt market, the only coins will come down to about 3 or 5, maybe 3 to 5. And then we will have as Raoul Paul likes to say every 6 seconds, a bifurcation of markets. We will have the Bitcoin market, and then we will have only coins. And only coins will kind of spin off into its own distant market where people can, enjoy being exit liquidity for insiders. It'll be like the farm league of investing. They'll learn that it's a rigged game and everyone's dumping on them. And they'll be like, I'm sick of getting dumped on. Now you might say as a Bitcoin holder, I'm sick of being dumped on. But that's just the way she goes in the Bitcoin market here. XRP A11Y. I bought XRP at 50 cents. Even with this pullback, still I'm at 3x. Yes. So there are some early investors in altcoins, right? And they're not going anywhere. I don't blame you. Where are you going to go, right? Most people, like let's say you got into MicroStrategy at $20. It doesn't matter if it's down at 180. You're still hella up. You're never going to release your position. Now, my only warning for people that are still high up in their cost basis on alts is at what point do you say, okay, this has been a long, good run. It probably isn't going anywhere. So I'm going to flip it into Bitcoin for this bear market. I don't know. If it was me and I was alt rich, I would flip it. But I don't think there's many people that are, that alt rich. I'm happy XRP11 got in that early and has a big fat XRP bag. I wish more people had a big fat bag of alts, because it would just end up going into Bitcoin eventually. Got eat fish. XLM at the bottom at the gap at 22. I don't even know what XLM is. Is that one of Ripple's things? XLM. Yeah, definitely not rich. XRP11 says, but listen, that's a great cost basis. That's why you're not going anywhere. Now, why I say it can be a misallocation of resources, because you're stuck in, the potential of XRP. If it goes, every pump it goes, that initial cost basis is unbelievable, right? Now, I'm just saying, if it was a substantial amount of money and it was put into a Bitcoin bear market, it might be the safest investment you held, right? But that's just my opinion. I'm not a big only coins guy. It goes against my ethos of time horizon, because when you initially get into all only coins, you think it is a very low high time horizon. I'm going to 10x 100x here in a week, right? And the next thing you know, it's been 5 or 6 years, and you're just like, I promised myself if it gets here, I'm out, right? And then it gets there, and you're like, well, wait a second, let's see how high it'll go. Anyway, final answer. Yes, this chart is real. Yes, it is unprecedented. No, it's not bearish long-term. Nothing really is bearish long-term, depending on how long you're looking out, right? Is it bearish in the next 3 months? Probably. We could get a pump today back up to 98K. So all peepers on 98K, right? Yes, it confirms a forced seller or broken execution system. Yes, this is the last echo of the October. You can't say this. So I remember people saying, some channels that I watch that I think are relevant information givers and creators, they said they will never go under 100K. And like, once you say that, it's like you're destined to go under 100K. Every time I hear it, it'll never go under here. It's just bound to go under there. So is this the last echo of October 10th? Probably not, because the last echo is the most violent one. And as painful as the dump hasn't been that violent. In the law of large numbers, it kind of looks a little bit more scary than it actually is. It's taken a month and we've gone down to 35, maybe 35%, and growing. But it's, in the big scheme of things, it's not the craziest. Yes, the unwind will end, and when it ends, the rebound will be violent. Now, this could happen. We could have a violent rebound. However, like I've been going on about ad nauseum, it's got to get over the 38.2% fib, 98.1. This is the bull market rejection zone. So whatever, and we are like I said yesterday, with this wick here at 80K, we're bound to hit it in the crypto winter, right? It's just now that's our wick that will get candlesticked. So however high it goes, let's say it goes to 200, probably go down to 80K again. Maybe throw maybe close at 80K, throw a wick down to 72 just to, screw everybody over. Look at this, getting a little pump here. We're almost at 85K. It's a nice little healthy green candle if I ever gone and saw one. Next headwind would be 85.7, getting back into this channel of descension. And then after that, there is we get rejection at the 87 mark, the 88K. So 88K being those crazy. Remember, if you're in the Discord, I managed to snap a picture of the price being 888.6 or something like that. It's like, come on, you crazy Asians. And they didn't buy it up. So maybe, as long as we kind of hunt around here, maybe get up forward. E-Money says, if my alt DCA, if I put in Bitcoin would be positive, not doing it again. Yeah. Well, that's part of the low time horizon. You learn a lot of things along the journey, right? And you can't just telling someone that the frying pan's hot, generally they'll have to be like, oh, I want to touch it though. I want to find out if it's hot because maybe it's hot to everyone and not me, right? And then there are some people that, it won't get hot. They'll just get lucky, right? And they'll get in accidentally as insiders decide to pump the bags. However, I hope all bags get pumped to the moon. I don't want anything to go to zero or anyone's bags to go to zero. 85K tonight, the Jimmy is closed. So I'll be doing a solo piano bar from the beloved basement in Winnipeg here. I think I'll just be doing originals with requests, of course. But I did this a few months back. It was kind of fun to revisit those songs, written in the past 2 decades. So if you have nothing to do, come by 9:30. We can chat, look at some charts. I'll be singing all the originals I know, including ones that I haven't played in decades. It won't be that pretty, but it'll be fun. Keep your papers. 98K. Have a lovely day. Uh-oh. That didn't work out, right? Keep your papers on 98K and have a lovely day.
Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video.